Gold stared out of the window, watching the raindrops hit the glass in steady rhythm, a slow and melancholic beat that mirrored the chaos in her heart. It had been weeks since he left, but the hollow ache of his absence lingered in every corner of her apartment. She couldn't stop thinking about him, about the memories they'd shared. Memories, she knew now, could never truly be erased. They simply faded over time, waiting to resurface when she least expected it. But even in the throes of her despair, one thing had become clear. I'm happy that he left me. I am stronger now. It wasn't always this way. In the days after the breakup, she had crumbled into herself, suffocated by the pain of rejection, the overwhelming sense of failure, and the crushing realization that her future, once filled with the promise of love, was now a void of uncertainty. The heartbreak gnawed at her insides, and some nights she feared she would never heal. But Gold wasn't the kind of woman who stayed down for long. She had spent her whole life battling adversity, so why should this heartbreak be any different? When she first started working out, Gold didn't think it would do much to mend her broken heart. She joined the gym, not out of a burning desire to get fit, but because she needed anything, to get her out of bed in the mornings. The first few days were rough. Her body ached, and her mind wandered endlessly to the past. But something strange happened after the first week. As she pushed herself through each workout, she began to feel a shift in her mind. The physical exertion did something to her emotionally. She found herself focusing less on the pain of her heartbreak and more on the challenge of pushing her body to its limits. With each bead of sweat, each rep completed, each run around the park, she felt stronger, not just physically but mentally. It wasn't long before Gold realized that the gym wasn't just a place to work on her body. It was a sanctuary, a place where she could process her emotions without judgment. Each movement was a reminder that she was capable, that she had control over her life. Little by little, the sting of her heartbreak dulled. In its place, a new confidence emerged, one that wasn't tied to anyone else. This is for me, she thought after a particularly grueling workout, her muscles trembling with exhaustion and pride. I'm doing this for me. In the weeks after the breakup, Gold found herself seeking solace in her friends, hoping that pouring out her heart would bring some relief. But each time she tried, the conversations veered in a different direction. One friend was dealing with her own breakup, another was struggling at work, and before she knew it, Gold was the one offering comfort instead of receiving it. It wasn't their fault, they meant well, but it left Gold feeling more isolated than ever, like she was drowning in her emotions with no one to throw her a lifeline. So she turned to writing. It wasn't something she'd ever done before, but one night, unable to sleep and overwhelmed by the thoughts swirling in her head, she grabbed a notebook and started to write. She wrote about the breakup, about the anger and sadness that had taken up residence in her chest. She wrote about the memories that haunted her, and the way her ex's laugh still echoed in her mind, even though he was long gone. The words flowed out of her, raw and unfiltered, and for the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of release. She wasn't a great writer by any means, but that didn't matter. The act of putting her feelings on paper was cathartic, like pulling a splinter out of her heart, one word at a time. Gold continued this practice, writing every day, even if it was just a few lines. Some days, her words were angry, filled with bitterness toward her ex. Other days, they were soft and reflective, as she pondered the lessons she was learning from the experience. Writing became her way of processing the breakup, and as time went on, she realized that she didn't need anyone else to validate her pain. She could do it herself. The biggest lesson Gold learned from her heartbreak was this: you can't pour from an empty cup. For years, she had been so focused on her relationship, on making someone else happy, that she had forgotten about her own needs. She had neglected her career, her passions, and her dreams, all in the name of love. But now, with the relationship over, she had a chance to change that. Gold threw herself into her work, taking on projects that excited her and challenged her in ways she hadn't experienced in years. She was a fashion designer by trade, but during her relationship, she had settled for safe, predictable designs that didn't truly inspire her. Now, she took risks, exploring bold colors and innovative patterns, pouring all her emotions into her work. Her designs became an outlet for her pain, her joy, her growth. And soon enough, the world took notice. A few months after the breakup, Gold was approached by a well-known fashion house in Paris, asking her to collaborate on a new collection. It was an opportunity she had dreamed of for years, but one she never thought she would actually achieve. As she boarded the plane to Paris, she couldn't help but marvel at how far she had come. If her ex could see her now, she thought, he wouldn't recognize the woman she had become. And she was okay with that. Gold also made a point of spending time with herself, something she had rarely done before. She took herself on solo dates, dinners at fancy restaurants, walks in the park, trips to the spa. She learned to enjoy her own company, to find peace in the silence. She began to understand that happiness didn't come from being with someone else. It came from within. And as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Gold realized that she no longer needed validation from anyone. She was enough just as she was. But just as Gold was beginning to settle into her new life, something happened that shook her to her core. One evening, while she was working late in her Paris apartment, she received a message on her phone. It was from him, her ex. "I've been thinking about you," the message read. "I made a mistake." Gold's heart skipped a beat. For a brief moment, she was transported back to that place of longing and pain. But then she stopped. She wasn't that woman anymore, the one who would drop everything at the sound of his voice. She had grown. She had changed. She thought back to everything she had been through, the hard days, the lonely nights, the journey of self-discovery that had brought her to this point. And in that moment, she knew that there was no going back. She didn't need him. She didn't need anyone who didn't truly love her for who she was. In many ways, Gold's journey mirrored the stories of countless women across the globe, particularly in African and European contexts, where the weight of cultural expectations often compounds the pain of heartbreak. In parts of Africa, the pressure to marry and settle down can be overwhelming, with societal judgment looming over single women, especially after a failed relationship. Gold, born to a Nigerian mother and a French father, had experienced this firsthand. From her African side, she had been raised with the idea that a woman's worth was often tied to her relationship status. But her European upbringing taught her the importance of independence and self-worth outside of societal expectations. Her heartbreak, then, became a battle not just within herself, but with the cultural narratives that had shaped her. She had to unlearn the idea that her value came from being with someone else and embrace the truth that her worth was inherent, unshakable, and uniquely hers. Gold put down her phone and smiled. She didn't need to reply. Her silence was answer enough. Looking out at the Parisian skyline, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. Her heart had been broken, yes, but it had healed stronger than before. She had overcome the pain, learned the lessons, and emerged on the other side more confident, more resilient, and more herself than she had ever been. And as the night deepened, Gold whispered the words she had come to understand so deeply. Don't lose yourself trying to please those who don't love you. You deserve better. With that, she closed her laptop, turned off the lights, and went to sleep, content whole and ready for whatever the future held.